going to be spending some time the next few weeks talking about the ways that Jesus is the way. We're going to be doing that with a jumping off point, if you will, each week from Eugene Peterson's book, which is titled by the same thing. Peterson, in his introduction, really challenges us to consider how we think of what Jesus said when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Normally, we think of the way as a means to an end, a way of getting somewhere, getting something, achieving something, being recognized for something. And those are certainly part of it. But the challenge is for us to see it as greater than that. Jesus isn't merely the way to God. Jesus himself is God, which means that when Jesus made the claim, I am the way, the truth, and the life, that who Jesus was as a person, his very life mattered. The way that he lived mattered. And so our challenge as believers is not simply think, what does Jesus get me? But what kind of life is being formed in me as I follow Jesus, as I live alongside him, with him. And so we have to be careful with that because our culture is going to challenge us. The culture is going to say, well, as long as you get the end result, then whatever you had to do to get it, it's okay, especially if the end result is something good. If it's a full church house, if it's getting someone to attend church, if it's whatever it might be that we would think is important, and get people to follow the way that we would want to do and have them live morally. And we have this tendency to think that whatever means we have to use to achieve those things are worth it. But Jesus was different than that. He did not make the means the end. In fact, the means was the end. If you look, how we get there and who we are becoming in the process determines who we are, not necessarily the end result. And so being with Jesus, the means ultimately becomes the end. In other words, who we are being formed into, who we are being shaped into. And so we give up things like power. We give up things like manipulation. We give up things like anger and hatred, those things that promote the self, and put the self as the means or the end, if you will, versus Jesus. So think about how he could have lived his life. And think about the temptations that he faced. In Matthew chapter 4, those temptations are there. And each one of those temptations is to get him to unjustly use his power, use his ability for his selfish promotion, manipulation, whatever it may be. And think how often you and I struggle with that same thing. And so that's our challenge to do, to live and to begin to be formed by Jesus as the way, the ways to live. And so we're going to be looking at for the next few weeks. I hope you'll join us. God bless you.